Okay, so now that we've talked about primary succession, the development of a new ecosystem, let's talk about secondary succession. So get to this paper for secondary. Sorry, it's kind of out of focus. There we go. All right, so secondary succession is going to be a little bit different. And again, we're still talking about how an ecosystem changes and develops over time. But this time, secondary succession is all about a former ecosystem going through something catastrophic and then recovering from that event. Okay, so first let's go ahead and do our definition at the very top. Secondary succession is a process started by an event that reduces an already established ecosystem to a smaller population of species. So basically you're starting off with a really healthy ecosystem, something happens and reduces the amount of living things, the amount of species within that area. So usually what happens is a catastrophic event. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put soil here because this is the big difference between primary and secondary succession. With primary succession, there is no soil to start off with. That's also why it takes hundreds of years, because it takes a long time for that soil to develop over time. But if you notice on this one, secondary succession doesn't take nearly as long, okay? So we're going to start off here with a catastrophic event. For our example today, we're going to talk about a wildfire because it's pretty simple and that's really our best example. So we are just going to come over here and draw some trees, but we don't want them to have nice leaves because there's a fire happening. So get your colored pencils. You'll need some black for that. And these are on fire, so I'm just going to kind of color in some red. Maybe some orange too. And this would also get rid of all of the grass as well as the trees. Okay, so we start off with a catastrophic event. In this case, this is a wildfire. Okay. Now 0 years. This is going to be the first step. So this is immediately after our catastrophic event, our wildfire. So really all we're going to be left with are some dead trees. And these are going to be really weak. Some of them fall down, some of them don't, but there they are. No grass anymore, just some dead trees. Okay, 1 to 2 years later. So this is still taking a good amount of time, but here we're still going to see maybe a dead tree or two. But the first thing that's really going to pop up and start growing here are, just like with primary succession, the first real substantial vegetation is going to be some kind of weed. So weeds here kind of take over that soil. Once the weeds develop and they start to die off, and over time, you can have some nice grass start to grow. So lots of different kinds of grasses can start to pop up here. And this takes about 3 to 4 years after our catastrophic event. So moving along, 5 to 150 years later. So this is a long, long, long process. We're going to continue to see grass. But next, what we'll really start to see here are some more types, more species of plants. So here we're going to see shrubs, and we'll also see some, just like before, with primary succession. In secondary succession, you're also going to start to see shrubs, and then next would be the small trees. So nothing too big here. Shrubs and small trees. Okay, and usually it takes close to 150 years. Trees take a long time to grow, but during this time, the sign that this ecosystem is completely developed is the development of large trees and large vegetation, large plants. They take a long time to come back. And this process happens all the time. And ecosystems are actually really good at recovering from catastrophic events. When we talked about catastrophic events, hopefully you remember that really most catastrophic events have some kind of positive impact on the ecosystem. In this case, wildfires, they're actually really good for the ecosystem, and actually, if they didn't happen, a lot of things would die off and not be able to come back, not go through succession. Because once a fire comes, it kind of kills off everything, and once something living dies off, it's a part of the ecosystem again in the form of nutrients in the soil. So this wildfire is going to allow the development of an all-new ecosystem in that location. Okay, make sure you have all your drawings, and then we're going to come back through here and we're going to label our vocab words. So just like before with primary succession, in secondary succession, the very first things that start to grow here, like weeds and grass, are what we call pioneer species. So they're the first living thing in the area, the pioneers. The middle guys, the in-between, so in between it being a completely wiped out ecosystem and a full ecosystem, we've got intermediate species. Intermediate just means the middle. And that's going to be your shrubs and small trees. And once you have a fully developed ecosystem, forgot the leaves on that one. Once you have a fully developed ecosystem, we call that the climax community. And again, of course, you're going to see lots of animals living in a climax community. Okay. And that is it for your notes on succession. Hopefully you have a pretty good understanding of this, and if you don't, always feel free to ask and just raise your hand, let one of us know that you need a little bit of help, okay? Once you're done with this, make sure you glue it into your notebook so it is always there, you don't lose it, and make sure it's all colored and nice.